welcome back to my read-along of A Tale of Stars and Shadow. Today we are up to chapter 21 and it's a nice short one, so I'm going to jump straight in. 2 days passed without Ravinire sending for Talyn as she'd requested. Annoyed, she went to his office in the barracks to see him on the third day. Impatient for information, she'd already spoken to Zamaral. They weren't thieves, he scoffed the moment she suggested it. How do you know? Thieves don't work together in harmonious groups, and even if they did, I don't know how many thieves in Dock City with the skills to break unseen into the palace, he said. Not to mention that no thief with that level of skill is going to try and break into a barracks storeroom. They'd go for the treasury offices or the royal quarters where the family keeps their expensive jewellery. It was a convincing argument. Right, not thieves, she said dryly. He flashed a smirk at her, the cockiness in his voice a complete mirror to the terror that had been there the night before. I could ask around discreetly, talk to a few of my old contacts, find out if maybe there's a new crew operating. She'd matched his smirk with a raised eyebrow. Told you you'd be useful in the wolves, Zamaral. She was reflecting on the sour look he'd given her when a young falcon showed her through to Ravinire's office. As soon as she stepped inside, it was clear that he had no time for her. Captain, Ravinire greeted her distractedly as she walked in. How can I help you? Talyn watched him shuffling through 3 piles of parchment, a slight frown creasing his eyebrows as he failed to find what he was looking for. I asked to see you to discuss further what happened the other night. I don't mean to be rude, sir, but it's been 3 days. Ravinire finally looked up, irritation deepening the frown. I spoke to Prince Kewin the morning after. If he hasn't relayed our conversation to you, that's not my concern. As overall commander of the Wingguard, the physical safety of the royal family is your responsibility, sir. Is that correct? Talyn kept her voice polite. And the integrity of our borders, yes. Ravinire went back to rifling through parchment. His tone was distant, his focus clearly not on their conversation. Then you are responsible for Prince Kewin's safety. You and I both know that Prince Kewin does not take his guards seriously. That's his prerogative, Ravinire said, a hint of impatience colouring his tone now. So what exactly am I doing here? She paused deliberately, leaving the edge in her voice. Sir. Ravinire finally pushed aside the piles and looked up. There's little to tell. Nobody got a good look at the intruders. They managed to infiltrate the palace but didn't get close to the Queen or any of the princes. Do you know for certain how many there were? We're fairly confident there were none but the 3 we interrupted trying to break into the storeroom. Plus the one that threw a knife at me, she said pointedly. There's only the single bridge over to the palace, and your Wingguard passwords are changed regularly. The intruders I saw were human, as was the man who attacked me. How did they get in? Ravinire ran a hand through his short-cropped hair. The falcons on guard were lax. We haven't faced a serious threat from anywhere for decades. The sentries weren't paying close enough attention. She nodded, accepting that as utterly incomprehensible as it was. What was in the storeroom they were trying to get into? Straw dummies. We use them often in training drills. Straw dummies? Sari's voice whispered through her mind. Talyn let a beat of silence fill the space between her and the falcon, not missing the way his eyes had flicked downwards or his sudden slight shift in the chair. 3 human intruders, skilled enough to get into the palace unseen, tried to steal some straw dummies, she clarified. It's what we store in that room, Captain, he said flatly. Sure, and what else did they store in that room, Sari wondered. Exactly, Talyn considered. Or used to store in there. She surveyed Ravinire, trying to decide how far to push. Sir, my understanding is that there would be few thieves in Dock City skillful enough to accomplish what these intruders did, and that even if there were, it would be extremely unlikely for them to work as a group. You are well informed, he said, and correct. Then who else would have motive and ability to break into the palace? She paused, deciding to be direct. And why? We both know they weren't after straw dummies. Ravinire spoke reluctantly. I am equally confused, Captain. He told her everything he knew, or at least everything he was willing to tell her. Not that that reassured her. For the overall commander of Mithranar's army, he knew disturbingly little about a blatant breach of palace security. If you're interested in my thoughts, I got the distinct impression that the other night was a reconnaissance of sorts. His gaze narrowed. You think the intruders were testing how easy it would be to get in? As you say, they went for a storeroom rather than anywhere valuable, and disappeared, successfully I might add, the moment the alarms were sounded. Talyn shrugged. But whoever they are, they've learned now how far they could get into the palace unseen, and how you responded when they were discovered. Even so, the guard is now doubled, and those watching the bridge will not be so lax again. Good, but someone got to Prince Kewin's tower too, and so far I've had no luck in being allowed to surround him with a guard detail. You're doing well with your wing, Ravinire said grudgingly, and with enough surprise it was clear he hadn't expected such progress. Testing her indeed. But that doesn't make them a sufficient detail yet. I will continue to do my best with the falcons until they are up to scratch. Yes, sir. She rose. He was done, and she was reluctant to push further. If you'd like any help with the investigation into the intruders, I'd be happy to assist. Ravinire stared at the window to his left. Good day, Captain. The dismissal was clear, so she saluted and left without another word. Frustration toyed with fear, the warring emotions tightening her chest. She had the skills to find out what had happened and who had been behind it, but either Ravinire didn't trust her enough to use her help, or he didn't recognize what she was. And the worst part was, a tiny part of her was glad he hadn't taken her offer. If he didn't ask, she couldn't fail. Both emotions continued to twist through her as she walked back to her room. With 5 untrained guards and a commander unwilling to engage her help or even tell her everything he knew, she was essentially operating blind. An armed man had gotten to Kewen's tower room. He could do it again, and she wouldn't even know. She couldn't protect Kewen properly like that. The shadows of falling dusk slid over the open walkway outside her room, and her steps slowed. Standing there, she took a deep breath. She and Sari had operated successfully with little information before, and she did have some details. The intruders had been human. With the focus and work required to prepare the wolves for the dinner, the progress she'd made in her other mission had been pushed to the back of her mind. But now she wondered. Perhaps that could be another source of answers. Ducking into her room, she changed into civilian clothing, waited till darkness had fallen properly, then went out again. Okay, that brings us to the end of chapter 21. As always, if you want to avoid spoilers, then now's the point to jump out before I start talking about the chapter in more detail. If you are jumping out here, thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I really look forward to seeing you for chapter 22. Otherwise, stick around and let's dig into this chapter a little bit more. Okay, chapter 21. Well, for those of you who know the book, we all know what's coming up in the next chapter, in chapter 22. I really just want to get straight to that, but let's then spend a few minutes thinking about 21. Nice short chapter, essentially a conversation between Talyn and Ravinire. She's had to chase him up because he's never come back to her to give her any further information about what happened during the attack 3 nights previous, straight after the Queen's reception dinner, when the strange man was outside Kewen's tower and tossed a knife when Talyn came running. Ravinire doesn't really have much more information for her, except for the absurd fact that it seems like these thieves were going for a storeroom that held straw dummies. Sari and Talyn together make a pretty quick point that that's obviously not what the thieves would have been after, and Sari and Talyn wonder whether something else might previously have been stored there. Zamaral has exactly the same conclusion as Talyn has come to. Ravinire here seems fairly ineffectual, and Talyn picks up on that pretty quickly. Essentially, he is being pretty ineffectual. The Falcons are a ceremonial force at this point. In Mithraenar's history, they don't really have any combat edge or combat training or any experience dealing with situations like this. Ravinire is more inclined to brush it under the carpet as a anomaly rather than something that he should really be particularly concerned about, despite what Talyn's saying to him. So essentially it's up to Talyn at this point to try and figure out what's going on so that she can fulfill her responsibility to keep Kewen safe. And as we can tell throughout the book so far and in this chapter, she takes that incredibly seriously, not just because it's her job, but because she sees success here as a way to redeem herself and prove to herself that she's still capable. Yet she's absolutely terrified that she will fail and that will prove that she's not capable any longer. So she wanders off at the end of this chapter. She was doing some digging into the Shadowhawk, trapped him quite nicely a few chapters ago. And as she says, the Queen's dinner and the training of the wolves has put that to the background. But now this might be a place where she can get some answers that she needs. So I'm going to leave it there so I can get into chapter 22. But if you have any questions or comments on this chapter, please leave them in the comments field below. Please consider liking and subscribing and hit the little notification bar so you get notifications every time these are uploaded. That really helps me out a lot. But I really hope you're enjoying this. I certainly am. And I'll see you soon for chapter 22. Have a great day.